Hello, people. Welcome to the Real Estate Real Talk YouTube channel. It is uncertain what will happen in the housing market in 2023. But one thing that is certain is that financial predictions can never be entirely accurate. Do we have another roller coaster ride ahead, or will everything be more sedate? In November 2021, Fannie Mae said that a peak in the market price may have been reached and the market will return to normal living conditions. The question is, how long will it take for the housing market to return to normal living standards? If you want more of this content, Real Talker, subscribe to the Real Estate Real Talk YouTube channel. Top 5 factors that could cause a 2023 housing market crash. Number 1. Inflation. If an economic downturn or a possible recession occurs, people will be less inclined to spend, leading to further effects altogether. This will increase the chances of the markets crashing in 2023. Number 2. Unsustainable market prices bubble pops. Sticker shock has taken greater hold while buyers are now presented with an affordability challenge. Number 3. Rise in mortgage interest rates. With every percentage point raise, the number of sales will decrease with each increase, creating a snowball effect on decreasing prices as consumers scramble to jump in before the price falls too low. Number 4. Pandemic. The economic activity may start to fall in 2023. People can also be nervous about moving homes. With a slowdown in economic activity, people are staying home to avoid spending money because of the risks of going outside. Number 5. Campaigning for 2024 election. Many are anxious before the election, especially when so many uncertainties surrounded the year. Uncertainty is never good for business, especially the 2023 housing market. Inflation could be a factor in the 2023 housing market crash. While the economy picked up steam, inflation continues to be a significant risk to the housing market. Doug Duncan, Fannie Mae Senior VP and Chief Economist, stated in December of 2021 that while the economy may have been picking up steam, inflation has been rising. The public expressed ire towards inflation in the most recent National Housing Survey, with 70% of consumers saying the economy is on the wrong track. Inflation is not likely to be a short-term phenomenon, according to Janet Yellen. Inflation moderates to acceptable levels. Economic growth decelerates but doesn't contract, a difficult task for the Fed. With inflation again on the rise, the Fed will once again pull out their favorite tool, a money printer and an interest rate adjuster. When the 2008 financial crisis occurred, the Federal Reserve lowered interest rates and printed money to pump money into the economy. Between 2008 to 2014, the Federal Reserve printed more than $3.5 trillion out of thin air. This is more than they had printed in more than 100 years combined before this happened. COVID-19's impact was a collective hold my beer moment for the Fed, banks, and governments, spending billions of dollars to come up with plans to combat the effects of COVID-19. As government spending and the Fed put more money into the economy, inflation increased slowly in 2018. That is until supply constraints limited its growth past a 40-year record-breaking pace. The Fed needs to use their other tool to cool off inflation: interest rate hikes. President Thomas Hoeing in the Kansas City Federal Reserve region worried in 2011 that the Fed was taking a risk path of increasing inflation and income inequality, which would enrich the wealthy while harming others. He warned that if the Fed continued to print money, disaster could ensue. In 2022, inflation begins to rise faster than the Federal Reserve believed. Gas prices are rising, goods like food and cars are more expensive, and the Federal Reserve starts exploring the possibility of increasing interest rates in response. This may cause stock and bond market instability while further destabilizing the real estate market. Following a Fed rate hike, The forecast notes home price appreciation slows and drops 10% by the end of 2022, according to Fannie Mae's economists. The forecast indicates that the 2023 real estate market could see a 20% decline, with home prices decreasing below the current inflation rate. Even though forecasts are all not accurate, this data is a good sign, as the market could be making an adjustment. Increasing house prices are creating a price bubble that could pop in 2023. CoreLogic and Zillow released forecasts in early 2020 predicting declining home prices. However, they were wrong, with prices increasingly rather than falling. The median home price in the U.S. increased by 27% in 2021, adding $9.1 trillion to total value of the U.S. housing market at that time alone. Some states had large percentage increases, as did owners of similar homes in other countries. By 2022, the U.S. housing market will continue to improve, with less price retention than expected from the previous year's prices. The top 5 states are Montana, Idaho, Utah, Nevada, and Maine for home values in coming years. In the year 2021, mortgage rates were the lowest in history, and stimulus money continued to flow for home purchases. And there was a record low amount of inventory available. With an already high price increase, the housing market could change in 2023 due to the increase of supply. With materials and labor becoming more valuable, construction may see a shift after the price increase subsides. These factors could make for a temporary buyer's market in 2023. Fannie Mae predicts continued double-digit home price growth until 2022, stating that the market will return to a previously normal 5% pace by 2023. By the end of 2021, home inventory had dropped to record lows. The housing market had reached its highest volume, and people were bidding on each other's homes, and prices were rising faster than they have in decades. According to Case-Shiller Home Price Index, in 2005, home prices were driven up to a 14.4% year-over-year gain by the fall of that year. That put them past another record in year-over-year prices increases that stood at 19.9% by April of 2021. The values of homes now stand at 3 times their peak from the last bubble in early 2007. Mark Zandi, the chief economist at Moody's Analytics, stated that he is worried about a hard landing in the housing market, but he expects the market and economy won't crumble to last time. According to Zandi, the housing market is out of whack and it's not sustainable. It is overvalued, stretched, and vulnerable as mortgage rates rise and affordability gets crushed. He thinks the housing market will be stable in 2023, with modest increases in certain areas while decreases in others. A rise in mortgage interest rates could tip the housing market in 2023. The average 30-year mortgage rate is expected to rise marginally to 3.5% by 2023, according to Fannie Mae. This is good news for investors in flipping houses because prices are projected to go up instead of down, though not at the same pace as we've seen in recent months. If we take a look at the market in 2023, that year is expected to be more moderate since much of it was overheated in 2021. With slowing home price appreciation, there might be more inventory available so the market doesn't crash. With home prices rising so much, millennials are being priced out of owning a home. This could change in 2023 as house flippers thrive. The pandemic might push the 2023 housing market to the brink, and in addition to the economy playing a role in predicting future trends, the U.S. soldiered onwards during the worst of COVID-19 and real estate boomed. In August of 2021, the Bureau of Labor Statistics reported that unemployment had fallen to 5.2% from its high in April of 2020 of 14.8%. This is not surprising, but still a problem for companies that can't hire enough workers. Consumer spending is increasing, with forecasts estimating it will increase by 8.1% in 2021, after a 3.8% contraction in 2020, aided by stronger economic growth. Consumer spending will then increase by 3% in 2022. There has been some skepticism that Hub Home relies on the power of automation and AI to create perfect home models in a fraction of the time it takes for a human architect. It's possible that automation could have an adverse effect on the availability of housing as well as our economy once more. A mature stage means growth has received back to trend, the labor market is at full employment, and the Federal Reserve is in progress of tightening monetary policy, according to the Fannie Mae forecast. Economies in recession are less resilient, and when the Fed tightens monetary policy, there is a risk that faster growth will create even more inefficiencies quickly by increasing the gap between demand and production. In addition, inflation risks coincide with stronger growth. In the best-case scenario, if everyone returns to work and offices open up more in cities across the country, the housing market could take a hint. One could imagine that in the aftermath of the pandemic, a fire sale where there was once a hot market in remote housing would take place, leaving suburban and rural areas with nothingness. Presidential election 2024 causing uncertainty in 2023 real estate market. Presidential election years typically see slower home appreciation. Historically, the drop in home prices is typically 15%. Concern of the president's nomination creates an uncertainty that affects home prices. Some buyers are hesitant to invest in a home for the time being due to uncertainty. With emotions running high over the upcoming presidential election, with voters split over the device candidate debates, there is a significantly increased chance of the real estate market being affected. With the 2020 elections nearing, given the two vastly different approaches of the projected candidates, there are very two possible outcomes for future housing. One option is keeping things stable and moving in a more conservative direction. The other choice includes expanding opportunities for minorities, low-income, and low-middle-class households. When consumers are unsure about outcomes during uncertain times, this can cause a disjointed market with more pessimism than optimism. Uncertainty over Election Day could lead to exciting Florida real estate times before the crash. Florida is typically hotter than many other bubble markets, and history shows when Florida's market jumps the highest, it usually bottom falls in, not always though. Different variables are likely to lead to a crash in real estate market by 2023, but it is rare for a crash to happen so soon after the market has been high performing. It's interesting to imagine who the candidates will be in 2020 and the investments they may be going into. Let's hope for futures filled with good investment opportunities. In recent months, U.S. housing has been declining as interest rates rise. Goldman Sachs predicts a worsening housing market in 2023, but interest from home buyers remains strong. This does not mean less home available for sale or higher prices, but rather a different market in which homes are on the market for longer periods of time before being sold. We expect home price growth to stall completely, averaging 0% in 2023. According to Goldman strategist and economist Jan Hatzus in a note to clients. While outright declines in national home prices are possible and appear quite likely for some regions, large declines seem unlikely. In the second quarter, home prices averaged $525,000. Last year, second quarters averaged $473,000, and in 2020, the average was just at $374,500. The market is predicted to see a small decline in home values because of inflation and a limited housing stock. Supplies are expected to be inaccessible because of expensive demand, but prices will stay high. Higher mortgage rates and reduced affordability are not the only drag on housing, the memo indicates. Existing home sales and building permits have fallen more sharply this year in regions where they increased the most in the earlier part of the pandemic, suggesting that the recent declines have also reflected the partial retreat of a pandemic-related boost to housing demand. Rates for mortgages for 30-year fixed loans have hit 5.66% for the first time, up from 2.88% at the beginning of 2017. Goldman predicts that new home sales will decrease by 22% in the year before the end of 2018. Existing home sales will decrease by 17%, and housing GDP will decrease by 8.9%. The Goldman Sachs economist projects that housing GDP will decline by 9.2% next year. In the following year, it's estimated that the real estate market in your region will decrease. If you're hoping to sell your home next year, there is some bad news. Despite predicted declines in home sales, the Federal Reserve is doubling down on their intention to continue hiking rates because inflation remains low. While higher interest rates, slower growth, and softer labor market conditions will bring down inflation, they will also bring some pain to households and businesses, according to Fed Chairman Jerome Powell in a speech the previous month. These are the unfortunate costs of reducing inflation, but a failure to restore price stability would mean far greater pain. Home builders and developers are hitting the brakes on construction due to increased costs, and meanwhile, Americans are canceling deals to buy homes at the highest rates since COVID-19 outbreak began. That sentiment is at its lowest in 2 years, according to Census Bureau. Home sellers are cutting the price of their houses in order to make them more appealing. Of all home sales in August, 20% of homes were sold at a discount. The notion of a housing market crash has never been more palpable. Home sales are falling, mortgage rates are still elevated, and home construction remains touch and go. In July, average home prices fell 0.77% from the month prior. This is the first monthly decline in nearly 3 years. This has led some to believe that a more substantial correction is on its way. Home prices almost always increase over time, yet in the United States, it's been a rare occurrence to see such an increase in recent years. The recent rise of home prices has been historic compared to the past. Home prices have increased nearly 40% just since March of 2020. However, increasing mortgage rates creates a large dip in home sales. On the 20th of July 2022, U.S. home sales decreased to 4.81 million adjusted annual rate, an all-time low for the 6 previous months and below expectations about 4.89 million during the time period. That's it for this video, Real Talker. Remember to subscribe to our channel, and if you feel like we've delivered value, please share this video with one person. That's right, just one person as a token of your appreciation for the hard work we put into making content that educates and helps you on your mission of building your own fortune. Remember, you can watch video after video, but it isn't until you actually take action that you'll start to see results. See you soon!